Hi there! In this episode, I'm going to show you how to measure windows for curtains. I'm Erinn Valencich. I've designed award-winning projects around the country, and my design firm is based here in Los Angeles. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to measure windows for curtains. The biggest mistake I see people make is measuring wrong for curtains. We will also cover how to measure for shades and the different styles so that you order the right thing. Nothing's more frustrating than getting this wrong. Click the link in the description to download my favorite window treatment styles so that you can follow along and take notes within the episode. This is going to help you select the right window treatments as well. Let's get started. So when it comes time to measure for drapery, I think it's always really important to understand the basics of this, even if you have a professional come and do it for you, because it really allows you to determine how much yardage and fabric you need and make your budget so much more accurate up front, so that as you're looking for fabrics, if you're going to create your own drapery, you're not kind of wondering, well, gosh, how much do I need? So I always take rough window measurements when I'm doing my floor plans and elevations anyway, so that I have all the dimensions of the actual size of the window, how much space there is between the wall and the window frame, and all those good things. But when it comes time to measure for your drapery, if you put your measuring tape on the floor and walk it up, it becomes very easy to get the height under that crown, which is 102. And I would always suggest hanging the rods nearly right under the crown. So this is hung, the rod is at about 100 inches, and I think the brackets go up a little bit higher. So you've got nice tall panels. Max out the height anytime you can. And then I always bring the rod at least 10 inches past the window on each side so that the drapery has a place to stack and you're not covering up your actual window. When the drapery are open, they sit covering the wall. You can do this trick and actually make the rods 10 inches, 20 inches longer on each side of the window, so that if you have a really big window with lots of fabric, because when that drapery opens up, it becomes a much wider stack, you can keep pushing that rod so that you get your panels stacking on the wall instead of on the window. It's also a great way to cheat the size of the window. Sometimes if you have a window that's placed off, it's not centered on the wall, meaning maybe on this side there's this much and on this side there's this much wall, you can offset the rod as well and just stack the drapery to one side, and it will appear that the wall, that the window is larger, because the panels will be covering the wall and no one will really see where the window stops. So you can kind of cheat it and stack your drapery on one side, which I always like to have split panels on my windows so that I can do just that. For instance, this has a sconce here, so I really only have about 8 inches between the sconce and the beginning of the molding here. And on this side, I've got about 15 inches of wall space. So we cheated the rod more towards the wall, but you can't really tell when the panels are there. It looks very even, but it also makes the window look as big and as wide as possible. So giving your window a longer rod will make the windows feel larger, and then also having panels as high as you can get them is always going to make the room feel good. So when it comes time to figuring out how much fabric you need, a regular width of fabric is typically about 52 inches, 54 inches. And when it's pleated, depending on the type of pleat you do, it generally goes down to about 50% of that. So if you're at a 50 inch, we'll call it, you're going to be about at a 25 inch by the time it's pleated down. This is a pinch pleat, which is one of my favorite pleats. It just has 2 pinches at the top, as if someone had just squeezed the fabric like so. So when they take that full piece, they pinch one, they pinch twice, and then they tack it. And so you get 2 little pleats, if you will, at the top of each. So that's a pinch pleat. We'll also show you French pleats. That's 3 folds. So they would have taken the fabric once, twice, 3 times, and then they sew that. So obviously you're using more fabric per fold in a French than you do in a pinch pleat because of that 3rd fold. So you need more yardage. You get kind of fuller drapery if you do a bigger pleat, like a French pleat with the 3 versus a pinch pleat with the 2. But truthfully, I don't think you need it. I really like this. I think it's a little bit more of that relaxed look. French pleats can be very formal, and very, very traditional. And depending on how they're actually sewn, they can get very stiff and have big headers. They actually sew paper in the back of those headers to keep the pleats really, really stiff, which I don't like very much. They get really kind of grandma feeling is the way I explain it. This up here is very relaxed. It has no fabric in it. It's unlined. It's a washed, heavy, heavy linen, and it just kind of hangs, and I really like that casual feeling. Although it's the white and the black, which is very crisp and tailored, it's a much more relaxed feeling for drapery. So this is my standard pleat I always do, and I like the drapery to just touch the floor. We call it kissing the floor. So that's typically where we have them called out. You can do a puddle, which is what the dining room drapery are doing. They're falling onto the floor, and that's also kind of a nice relaxed look. This linen tends to stretch a bit over time. It grows as it hangs. So knowing that that's the case with some of your fabrics, it's totally fine. And I don't mind a little bit of a puddle. If you're doing silk or something very lavish and luxurious, you might want to add 6 inches, 8 inches, 12 inches of puddle, and then you get this very balloony, voluminous kind of drapery, and they almost stand up, kind of like a really great ball gown that's longer than your high heels or your legs. It kind of hits the floor and it ruffles, and that's a really pretty look as well. Definitely a little bit more formal and more traditional, but if you want a clean panel, just specify that you want it to kiss the floor, which is like just hover right above the floor. You definitely don't want a 1 inch or 2 inch gap with your drapery floating, kind of hovering like way too high over the floor. That looks terrible. So either add a fabric band to get that length or lower your drapery rod. So when it comes to figuring out how much fabric you need, knowing that as you pleat your drapery, the one width of 50-inch fabric is gonna pleat down to approximately, let's say 25 inches. Depending on how long your rod is, if your rod's 100 inches, you need 4 widths of fabric, right? 25, 25, 25, and 25. So that would be 4 widths times the height, which for the average room is 3 yards up. This is 9 feet, so I'm actually gonna need a little bit extra because I have to add probably about 8 inches every time they do a bottom hem because they fold it over twice, and maybe another 8 inches on the top. So if I were to order 4 yards times my 4 widths, that's how much fabric I need. So if you want it to be fuller, you might want to add 5 widths of fabric, but knowing that if you're gonna have panels, 2 panels, that would be 2.5 widths sewn per panel. So total on my rod, I'm gonna have 5 full widths of fabric. Or if you want it even fuller than that, very luxurious, really, really heavy, you could do 6 widths, and that's 3 widths per panel times your 4 yards per width, and that's how much fabric you need. So if you draw it out like I do in my wallpaper course, do a very simple line drawing, 100 inches, 25, 25, 25, 25 times your 4 yards, and then you can determine how much fabric you need. It makes it really simple to do the math. We'll provide all of that written down in the course so that it's easy to follow, but that's a loose estimation of how much you need. So for this dining room, it sits facing the driveway, which is fine and good when there's not a bunch of cars out there. But if you're having a big party and there's lots of people or autos parked outside, it's not always that sexy feeling to be dining kind of in the driveway. So what we did with this room is went with some beautiful shears with a little bit of texture. That way, at night, you can close them and have a little bit of privacy. You'll still be able to have the sparkle of the outdoor lights coming through, and the same during the day. Also, because this room sits facing the street, if there were any privacy issues or you wanted to make sure that the room felt like extra cozy and secure, you can pull those shears, still get the natural light coming through into the space, which is always important, but you can have that little layer of privacy. So I always love to do shears in a dining room. These are pinch pleat at the top, which is one of my favorite types of pleats. And we did a nice black iron rod to kind of give it that element of contrast and tailoring. And there's some other dark elements in the room that coordinate, like the light fixture, the frame around the art. So it starts to just give you that little bit of tailoring as opposed to doing like a polished nickel or something like that, which I think feels a little bit like kind of cheesy and played out these days. Dark oil rub bronze or black window hardware is usually our preference. And as well, it coordinates with the color of the window here. So, you know, I wouldn't really have gone with something that didn't coordinate with the window since we have black metal windows. You want to make sure that those things come together. And I always like to go a little bit past because we wanted to leave room for art here in between these windows, we couldn't go too far over this way. Normally I would like my drapery to sit kind of 14 to 16 inches past the window, but in this case it made the wall really small for the art, and because this is the wall you see when you come in on this space, we didn't want to pinch it and crowd it with a bunch of fabric. So we went a little bit past. I like to make sure that when they stack, they hang perfectly straight, so not pushing them all the way over here, and then they always get wider at the bottom. So not pushing them all the way at the top, kind of closed, and then they hang wider at the bottom. You want them to hang in a perfectly straight column, especially in a modern space like this. So I always make sure that they are open, spend the time fluffing them just perfectly so that they give you that nice straight column as they hang. If you enjoyed the video, please like it below and subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the bell to be notified when a new episode comes out, as well as leave me a comment or a question. Check out some of my other episodes and tutorials here to learn about how to design or build a wonderful home. If you'd like to check out my complete kitchen design and bathroom design and interior design courses, please visit my website, erinnvdesign.com. Also, follow me on Instagram at erinnvstyle.